July 23, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. There was no economic data that came out today to really move the markets. Overall, the price action today it didn't yield very many setups that I could find. There's probably a total of 3 setups that I found, and of the 3, I took 2 of them. And in hindsight, after further review of the 2 trades that I took, they do feel, I think at least the second one for sure felt a little more sketchy, a little more risky aggressive. And I was lucky that I think that both of these trades turned out to be green. It easily could have been a no trade day. I started off by establishing the pre-market high, which is right here, and the pre-market low, which is right here. As you can see, the pre-market low was never revisited, so it's kind of not useful today. And then the pre-market high, which is here, there wasn't much respect given by the price action to either respect it as resistance or as a support, except for maybe all the way over here. And at that point, I didn't really even consider the pre-market high as a factor in a trade setup. It was more important to see the, I think, trend channels. I'm going to go ahead and delete the pre-market highs and lows just to clear up the drawing. And as you can see here, there was some kind of support provided here that looked like it bounced a few times, but unfortunately I couldn't find a good trade to capitalize on this. And then there was a weird kind of choppy sell-off. It wasn't, I would say the day it wasn't as if the price action was very difficult to read. It was just a lot of fits and starts where things looked like they might set up, but then at the last minute, the signal bar just wasn't clean, or it was just some ambiguity because price action and the candles were very close side by side. So when I'm seeing a second entry, I don't like if the second entry is kind of in this choppy zone because it's hard to trust your signal bar. And if it's in a choppy zone that you're playing range rules, sometimes the candles with respect to the size of the range is very large. So it seems very easy to get stopped out, or by the time the candle closes, you're probably pretty close to either the highs or the lows to buy at the lows and sell at the highs. So I'm going to go through the trades right now, as well as the setups. It won't take very long. It was easily a day of, you could have just skipped today. I think it easily could have been a no trade day. I think if I was wiser, I probably would have treated it as a no trade day, but I somehow managed 2 trades out of it, which wasn't, well, in hindsight, they weren't really the best trades or best setups to take a trade. So pre-market, there was a sell-off. There's already a break, tested the low twice. I did think maybe there's a slightly different channel, but it doesn't really matter here because I'm not trading the pre-market. Then clearly there's this yellow up channel. There's a break, test of a new high, comes flushing down on this orange channel. Technically, there's a second entry long here, but it's not a good signal bar below the EMA. It's also, in the pre-market, so I'm not that excited about it. There is the first setup that I see, but it happens right at the open. So you have this break of this yellow down channel. Technically you have a first attempt to go short here, but it's actually, I saw was one leg down, push back, a second leg down. So in the pre-market, you're seeing this, and then you see this. And I'm thinking there is a potential second entry long here, but I considered it an almost trade because I did preliminarily have this as a trend line going up. Then I thought maybe this trend channel fit pretty well when it was about here, but it was a little ambiguous because you can interpret it slightly different. Maybe there's no contact here. It could actually be cutting through a little higher. But once this candle formed and closed, I thought there was a second entry long, but I wasn't that excited about this setup just because even though this down channel had tested once, it's about to test a second time, potentially, second entry short on a visual to test the lows here. I don't like the EMA is totally flat. I'm also not that excited that this is right at the open. And right at the open, there's a lot of trades and traders that have orders lined up that will execute in regular trading hours. So this could easily just do this weird flash move that I just didn't like. So because you can see here it's 6:30, this is about these 3-4 candles happen in 1 minute. So that's very quick price action. So I just didn't like that. Prices kind of look like they're in this range here. It's in first entry long, pullback, second entry long. This is your signal bar to go second entry long, but then the follow-up bar, if this had closed higher, then maybe there's a trade here because I do like when it engulfs the previous, but there's a few conditions that I need to have fulfilled. I need the close to be actually higher than the body, or at least match. And I did like the tick up, but then it pulled back to the halfway point. So there's no setup here. Prices started to move. And at this point, I thought there was this trend line here and a potential channel formation here. And I saw this as a failed breakout. Oh, I just want to point out there was a second entry long here, but this is a small risk. It's just kind of not bouncing off the EMA, so I just wasn't too excited about this one. There's a failed breakout. It's a first entry long, pullback, potential second entry long here. Now, I don't have this purple up channel established yet because it's only 1-2 confirmations. Plus, there is some interpretation that could happen, especially early on, because I could have had it. I did, I think, have it cut like that at one time, and it was only after this candle formed that I was thinking, okay, maybe it's something slightly like this. There's a green down channel break, test of the new low, and it starts to reverse. And it actually sets up for my first trade, which at the time I thought was probably more aggressive, but I took it anyways. There's a failed breakout of this potential purple up channel, first entry long, second entry long pullback. Then I saw this higher low set up. So in real time, I'm seeing something like this. I like that it flushed down and it started pushing up. And when it was about to close, I thought, okay, I want to enter with enough room to scalp out before this high. So I figured there was probably enough momentum. There was a breakout here. It didn't create a corresponding breakout here. So I was playing with the idea that potentially the top of the trend channel is up here. So I saw it as clearly enough room before I hit the purple. But I was more concerned about hitting the high of day, which is this dotted purple line. This is the highest price that it's ever been today. But I knew if I entered with one tick above this guy, then I'm asking for prices to push above this, which I wasn't too keen on. So it is a break of this yellow up channel, broke, and technically it tested a new high, but when it closed this strongly, I like that. So I actually entered at the highs of this candle. I entered, and on the same candle, I was able to quickly scalp out before I had to ask for it to break through through this high, or at least match the high. Matching the high is always risky because depending on where your trade is in the queue, you may or may not get filled. But here, I clearly got filled because it had to push through to make this matching double top. But it looks like if I try to go for 2 points or more, my stop's down here. This candle likely would have stopped me out. If not, one of these candles would have stopped me out. So that was the first trade. And in hindsight, I do realize that I am asking for quite a bit to push, up to here. It was a little risky, so I tried to reduce it by putting at the highs here. And the way I was reading it is one touch all the way up to this high side because I actually had it a little bit lower here. Fail breakout. It didn't make a corresponding fail breakout on this side, so that was my justification to think it's a break, potentially a test of a new high. But it was, certainly a little riskier. Then prices continue moving up. It looks like it's bouncing off this purple pretty nicely, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. Confirmations at the bottom, confirmations at the top with this failed breakout. You could say maybe it's a little bit higher. I thought about that, but then I didn't like that these were just kind of floating in air by themselves. So I liked it a little bit better as a, early attempt that failed, and then confirmation touches a little bit, looks a little nicer to me this way. Prices move up. There's a first entry long, second entry long, no trade here. It's below the EMA. It's breaking through this purple, so it could be a failed breakout coming through, but it already broke out earlier by how I drew my channel. So definitely I wasn't thinking of going long here. Plus, this wasn't a good signal bar. Then prices start moving down. It starts moving down what I think is this yellow down, or it's orange down channel, because it touched once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. It looked pretty good. I wasn't 100% sure if it was something like this with a failed breakout, and I eventually dragged it to here when it touched once, touched twice, but I didn't see any clean setups in here. This one was an almost setup. So this is a new low, first entry short, pullback, second entry short, break of the green down channel. You expect to test its low. It made one attempt here. This is the second attempt here, except this signal bar isn't very good. The body and the close is too neutral. If it had closed at the low, then I would have considered taking a trade because there's just enough room to scalp out. I mean, you are getting pretty close because it looked like it had trouble previously. So nevertheless, it just didn't set up quite right, so I didn't even mark it. Prices move down on this yellow down channel, breaks, tests the new low, makes a second attempt down. Then it starts reversing. This blue line was what I had, because I have during regular trading hours, I have kind of lines all over the place where I'm thinking there could be a potential bounce, maybe it's a support. And this is kind of after the fact. So I did have one of these lines drawing through here, seeing if this price would touch. Also had another one a little bit lower here, but I wasn't too keen on it because it didn't have a second confirmation. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one for now. Actually, it never really came into play. It bounces, so I'm thinking there, you could argue for a triple test, one touch, two touch, a fail breakout, and a third touch, but there's no setup here that I like. It just doesn't look like there's anything here. The new low first entry short pushes up. You technically have a second entry short here, but this is a bad signal bar, and there's already so many candles in a row in real time that you're seeing that are very bullish. So I'm not thinking short here, and I'm not thinking failed second entry short either, because overall bias is kind of pushing down, so it's hard to really know which way it's going to go. Prices move up without any clear second entries. You make a new high here. It is a first entry long here. Then you kind of push up. And then you create a second entry long here, but it isn't a very good signal bar. It looks a little iffy. Prices are just kind of just chopping sideways. There's two dojis in quick succession after each other. Well, not quick succession, but just very close to each other. So it just kind of makes me throw some red flags to tell me just to be cautious. It starts moving down on this purple down channel. I eventually draw this purple channel, but there's no clean second entries that I like because the EMA looks like it's just flattening out, right? Flattening out with a slight bearish bias, but prices are starting to move down, but not in a clean fashion. So this could be, as I saw, kind of like a trading range and a potential another trading range here with support and fail breakout here. But it's just these candles side by side are spanning the entire length of the previous candle with maybe a small blip on each side. When I see something like that, it's kind of like piano keys. Not really piano keys because they have to have full bodies. And it makes it a little confusing for me to really, I guess, distinguish which way the price action is going to move, if it's pushing up or down, even when the EMA is better than this. If there's like some bias to it, then I can feel a little more confident. I think I could get a better read. But you can argue pretty much that this is just flat. So it finally breaks out. And I do have this blue down channel here, or blue trend line here. And I'm thinking, was this going to be something even bigger? So I had something like this early on. Then it comes down, eventually down to here, and I had something like this. I'll go ahead and leave that there, and I'll show you kind of when I decide that it wasn't anything useful. So prices move down, breaks out of the orange channel, makes a new low. I'm thinking there's going to be maybe a small correction up to the EMA. It falls short of the EMA. You have a second entry short here if it's a bad signal bar. Then this follow-up candle looks great, except it's kind of big now, and I wanted a rejection off the EMA. I eventually draw this yellow down channel. Again, similar issue with this big trend channel is there's a good confirmation at the top, but not so good at the bottom. So I'm looking for reasons to go short, and I couldn't really find too many setups to go short. You technically have a new low here, first entry short. You have a second entry short, and this is your signal bar, but it's an inside bar. So it's a little hard to trust. And if you did take it, I would be concerned as a possible support here because it already tried twice, having a rejection and bounce back up. Then it does test and make another localized new low. First entry short pullback, another second entry short here. It's a bad signal bar. It just looks very, very, there is a bias to it. Even when you see this in real time, you don't see anything past where my cursor is, but it's hard to trust because it looks like it is finding some kind of support here. Prices creates a new high. It's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. This would have been a potential trade that I would have marked if this wasn't such a sucky, bad looking signal bar. So then prices continue moving. Again, it's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is a signal bar for second entry short. Nothing that I particularly like. There's a new high, first entry long, pullback, second entry long, but it makes a new high. So I'm just waiting now. Plus these bars are sitting very close side by side, almost the same size. So again, it's just telling me, things are they're just not setting up quite right. Price action isn't as cooperative today. Here's a new low, first entry short pullback. You have a second entry short, potential trading range. I actually had this range high a little lower, so I thought this could have been a failed breakout. But again, first entry short, second entry short, second entry short, potential top of the range. It's not a very good signal bar. By the time this candle forms, it feels like it's too late. But in real time, you see something like that. So it's just like, okay, well, I'm not feeling that confident about that, especially the next candle where it creates an equal size one with maybe one tick above. So yeah, it's just telling you sit out on these type of setups. Here's a new high, first entry long pullback. You have a second entry long, but it's an inside bar. This is the signal bar, it's inside bar. It's just also a really large bar. It's like 3.5 points. It's just telling you, okay, don't just wait for easier setups. It finally breaks out of this trading range. There's no clean second entries that I could find. It does do something very interesting. So it starts touching this blue trend line coming down. And this corresponding side where I thought, okay, is there a channel? Maybe a failed breakout here. I wasn't too excited about the second failed breakout, so I did drag it down a little lower to about right here. And then it comes flushing down. Technically, you have a new high here. First entry long, second entry long, second entry long failure. This is a potential trade, but I didn't like it for the following reasons. Even though it's a second entry long from here, first entry long, second entry long, and if you're looking at a trading range, it's at the low of the range. So you'd be selling into the low with the potential EMA coming into effect. So what you see in real time is first entry long, second entry long. If you're thinking, 2 legs back, you're going to potentially bounce off of here. You're also at the low of the trading range, but then you don't have enough justification to suddenly say, well, if it's not a short, it's also a new high, first entry long, second entry long failure, new low, first entry short, second entry short. So everything's telling you, okay, there's a potential short here, but this EMA is coming into play. You're bottom of the trading range. It's just a little ambiguous. But I'm not ready to just reverse it and think to go long. In this case, the short would have won, but it's just a dangerous setup in my opinion. Prices then move, breaks out of this yellow down channel. It pushes up on this orange up channel. And this is actually where I take my second trade. And it seems like the third setup that I can only find. Creates a localized new high. It's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. So I'm going to push it back to where I thought I see things in real time. First entry long, second entry long. Also, there's a break of this yellow down channel. Looks like it made 2 legs up. And I'm thinking there is maybe a potential second one of these yellow legs coming down because there's a rejection off this downward trend line. So I'm thinking, okay, it had trouble breaking through. It probably has some momentum to push down to here. So after this break, this yellow down channel, it made 1 attempt up, pull back, second attempt up. Now it looks like it's 1 attempt down, pull back, second attempt down. So I'm seeing this as a new low, first entry short, pull back. It's about to create the second entry short, and I also saw this as a new high, first entry long, pullback, second entry long. So it's staying below the EMA. It's a pretty decent signal bar for failed second entry short. So I thought, okay, I didn't have this trading range drawn yet, but I'm thinking, okay, there's enough momentum to quickly scalp out a 1-point scalp. So I entered at the lows, you can see right here, lows of this candle, and my exit is actually 1 tick above here. So it pushes up, and I'm thinking I'm about to get stopped out. It pushes up a second time, but I'm still just sitting here hanging out. Again, it does it a third time. And at this point, I was considering maybe if the prices come back down to here, I should take a break-even trade because it clearly looks like it's ranging now. Not only is it ranging, I kind of sold near the lows. So remember, my stop's up here. It created a new low, first entry short, second entry short, first entry long, second entry long failure, but it's getting a little congested. So I'm just thinking maybe I should take just a scratch trade. But it finally flushes down, breaks through this trading range by 1 tick, fills me, and I was able to get out. But as you can see, if I didn't get out on this candle, there's a high probability that this candle would have taken me out. And if it doesn't, this candle would have taken me out. So it was definitely a lucky trade. I saw it early, and in hindsight, it wasn't the best trade because prices are moving sideways and EMA is moving sideways. So it's hard to really tell the bias, but I was banking off the overall context of this acting as a strong resistance. It already came to the top. It looks like it's coming back down. But again, I think if I had thought it through a little bit more, this is probably a trade to maybe have skipped. Prices then continue moving up. It flashes up and then it starts moving down on this orange down channel, breaks out, pushes up, and this is getting to the last pretty much 10 minutes of the day. So definitely don't want to take any trades here. But as you can see here, there's no second entries. It's all pretty much first entry all the way up to here, above the EMA, then breaks through. You would have your second entry here, but it's not a good signal bar. If you were more aggressive, maybe especially if this closed at the low, maybe you would consider taking this trade, but it just doesn't set up quite right. Plus, there's only 7 minutes left in the day. Definitely you don't want to take a trade with that much time left. So kind of how I saw the charts today, not very many clean setups or setups at all. I was lucky with my two green trades. Definitely on the second one, it's worth considering to have skipped it. And the first one, it was a little, well, in some ways it was a little lucky too, because as you can see, it could have easily failed. First entry long, second entry long, and a higher low. Higher low is pretty far from the EMA, and there was just enough room to scalp out. So hopefully that was helpful.